So, yeah, we can probably talk more after that. Yeah, well, at least my voice is still okay, so that's good. Let's see if I can find my other presentations. It's called Talent Management, yes. There we are. Yeah, so you guys are doing well. Nobody's sleeping. Almost nobody's sleeping as now. So now I will talk about the population and also the management in Denmark, of course, which I know best, and also something about EU. Here I put, like, because it's a conflict thing, so here's the conflict is between these guys and these guys. I mean, the animals, these guys don't have a conflict. They just one eat, the other dies. It's okay. It's not a big conflict. Conflicts are always with people. And of course, we have the ornithologists, the people who like the birds, and also people who just are generally interested in a balance of nature and all this. They are very, very much against shooting wild birds for many good reasons. And these guys are also happy about the birds, but they also want some fish to fish on. So that's basically where the conflict comes on. So I will talk about the population status. That's what you asked for before. I will talk about our management. I'll talk a little bit about EU, and then I will end up just talking a little bit about this Nordic cooperation that we need. I'm sorry I have so many terrible photos of cormorants eating, but you know, since I started publishing these things, I get photos sent from the whole world, and everybody sends photo to me and say, you should see this, you should see this. I had a hunter 2 weeks ago, he sent me 3 photos of cormorants that he shot that had a big North Sea houting, one of the last 2,000 individuals in the world hanging out of the mouth. But these were so bloody, these photos, so I didn't want to show them. But anyway, here's, for example, in our ex-EU partners, the Brexiteers, they have a problem in England too, and they already have this cormorant watch, and you can go on the internet and say when you saw a cormorant, and because they also find in England that they have a big conflict between anglers and cormorants. In Germany, we have the same. This is actually from Bayern, like we talked about before. They call it here cormorant, and the fish population, a never-ending story. And this was from 2009, and yeah, it is a never-ending story. It goes on and on and on, and people who work with this type of conflicts seem to think that it's very difficult to solve it. Also here is from Denmark, the cormorant, a giant environmental political scandal, blah, blah, blah. So they also write about it in the Danish papers, the Swedish papers. Fisk Award is saying cormorant hunting is the best way to protect your fishing in the rivers. So also in Sweden they have it, and so on. Even in the United States, where I come, I used to live over here in the Columbia River area. That's probably why I have this little bit of an American accent, which I should always apologize for. It's terrible, but it came from there. I did my PhD over there too, looking at survival of coho smolts. And lo and behold, lots of our smolts were found, the tags were found in the cormorant colonies over there too. So for example, in Columbia River, there's one artificial island that was built in 2015, and there's so many cormorants there that 26,000 nests, that's one colony, 26,000 birds should be destroyed, and 11,000 birds should be shot just to try to minimize it. And they did that because they're eating almost 20 million baby salmon a year. And then, of course, 20 million smolts, that's a lot. But I looked at the numbers because I know the guys who did this study, and they based it on pit tag recovery, just like we did. And actually, the highest proportion of fish eaten there was for steelhead, rainbow trout smolts, 3.6%. So they did all this with the army and everything for 3.6% mortality, and we have 47 in average in Denmark. So you can see that for us it's much worse. But anyway, salmon are money, and money rules in the US, so they actually have the US Army to go out and shoot them. This here is from my own little city in Denmark, in Silkeborg. This basically is just put here to show, this was one morning I drove to work. Christy knows this place, and I saw just all these cormorants down in the harbor, and I took this photo. This is a river. This is actually just a river and a lake, 100 kilometers from the sea. And sometimes in the winter the birds come, and it's not unusual that they come. What is unusual is they're so tame. You see, I took this with my telephone, so I just kind of walked down there right here, and they don't even fly away. And in the old days, these birds were really, really shy, and they would fly away immediately. So they changed their behavior very much. So the conflict that I'm talking about here will be the conflict of trying to save healthy cormorant populations. We want the cormorants to be there, but we also want harvestable fish stock, not just fish that exist, but actually fish that we can also take some out of. Because if we don't do that, I don't think we have many fish left there or anything in the future. So that's quite important that we have that. Uh-oh. There we are. So here's the colonies of these great cormorants. These are both sinensis and carbo. You see the black ones are carbo-carbo, and the red ones are the sinensis, the ones we are talking about. And you can see the difference between before the protection and after the protection. And you can see what countries are worst affected, and it's right here where we are. So we are right in the middle of the big expansion. And here is actually the number of breeding colonies and the numbers of nests in Europe in 2012. There was a big European inventory done then, so they tried to count as many as possible. And basically they say that one nest is about 5 birds, so in total almost 1 million birds. And you can see here that Estonia and Denmark is pretty well represented, and Sweden is by far the biggest engine, the biggest locomotive to increase the number of cormorants. But you can also see that it's quite interesting that you have 13,000 birds in just 18 colonies. But since our colonies crashed, we have so many more. Actually, this year we have 78 colonies. So the number of colonies in Denmark goes up all the time, but the number of birds do not go up. So that's how it is. So here's the breeding population on a European scale. You can see that these carbo-carbo has been very stable, while the other ones have increased very high. So these are some debatable numbers. These are not scientifically documented numbers. This is collected by the Anglers Alliance. But it's the best we have, basically. And you can also see here's the sinensis breeding pairs from when they were protected here, and how it just goes up. And then we had these cold winters, and then it kind of goes back up. And it's basically driven by these countries. So it's Finland and Baltic and Sweden that really drives this expansion now. So here's Denmark. The current number of birds is right now in maybe September, October, we have about 250,000 birds. And in the winter, which will then be maybe January, February, we might have as few as 15,000. But there's always cormorants in Denmark. So we have a long season. So it's different things. We have a lot of birds, but they also stay many days in Denmark. So we have a huge potential predation compared to Finland and maybe Estonia, where you only have the cormorants in the summertime. We have birds all year round, and here's the colonies. And that river that I showed you the study of from the grayling is right here. So you can see this is the one area where we don't have colonies, but still there was birds in the winter. And these are just some of all the colonies we have. So here's just the development of breeding stocks again, because this is the numbers we have. We count the nests very well every year, so we have very good numbers. All back from 75, I think. These are very reliable numbers. So you can see that in 95 we were already up on these 35 to 40,000 pairs, and then we stayed there for about 10-15 years, and then it started to decline here. And of course we can always discuss, is this regulation? Is this because of all our management plans? Or is this natural? Because we did more and more management here, and more, and also more here. But still the population started to go up again. So what it seems to me is that this is driven by food, not by any regulation or hunting or anything. But I will show you more figures on that later. But the fact is that we were way down here, 2011-12, and now it kind of climbs up a little bit again. Okay, so our management is done by the Ministry of Environment. They are the ones who are responsible according to the Birds Directive and the international directives. So they are the one who should do the management. What they have done is they have made this group, stakeholders, managers and experts. And we do this national cormorant management plan, and we have done one since 1997. And some of the measures that are in the plan is this egg oiling, which kills the eggs. It's prevention of new settlements. That means that if you see a new colony being built, somebody calls the authorities, they have to send somebody out there to scare the cormorants away or destroy the nests. And then there's the protective shooting, which is now more and more shooting, more and more places. Both fishermen and hunters are involved in this here measure. But those are basically the things that we can do in the plan. We meet regularly, means twice a year or something. And we have, of course, the leader is from the Naturstyrelsen. Then we have the anglers there, Danish Sports Fishing Federation, commercial fishers, recreational net fishers, these are what we call fritidsfisk, animal protection, hunters, ornithologists, and then ministry. And then we have one bird expert, Thomas Breinweiler, and then me from DTU. So Thomas and I have been working together in this group for many, many years. And it's quite interesting because you have these guys here, the anglers, commercial fishermen, on one side, and then you have these here on the other side. And they said, these guys say, ah, and these guys say, ah. And these guys use Thomas. He's their expert. He's the bird expert, you know. He knows everything about birds and protection, and he loves birds, you know. And I'm there for the fish, and I know a lot about the fish, and I like the fish. The funny thing is, these guys hate each other, but we work very well together because we are both scientists, and we both look at the data, you know. And when I document something, Thomas comes in with very good questions. That's also why we publish a lot of things together, because he's very good at saying, well, Niels, did you think about this and this? And I said, oh, yeah, okay, maybe not. So this is interesting to say that facts and science, if you put that into such a thing here, the conflict will be better. I mean, I really believe that, and of course I have to believe that as a scientist, but I believe that when you have a conflict that is fixed and you have people just being angry with each other, look at the Republicans and the Democrats in the US, you know, but if you put in some facts in there, some science, some documentation, it kind of smoothens things out and start talking together. But of course, if you have people like Donald Trump who don't listen to facts, then you have problems. And sometimes we tend to think that these guys are a little bit fact-denying Donald Trump guys. But I think it's just about more communication anyway. Because I have very good personal relationship with the people there, and I think we all work for the same thing. Anyway, so actually the first plan came already in 1982. It was a very, very little thin plan with just 2 pages or something. But since then we have revised it 5-year intervals. It's now a decent report. It's 120 pages, has a lot of historical info, lots of scientific information, and a lot about the experiments with the different management measures. So I actually am very happy about our management plan. I think that's a good, normally I don't really care much for these environmental ministry, because they never have money for anything and are difficult for them to do things. But in this case, I think they do a very good job, and we have a good management plan. So we cannot really blame that. I know the Swedish and Finnish are thinking that they want something like we have because they think it's a very good tool, which it is. And it's an adaptive management. That means it's not fixed, it's changing, it's dynamic, it changes all the time. So it's a framework. First, in the old days, when we documented this loss of fish in pound nets, we just documented that the cormorants came and ate all the fish from the fishermen's nets. Then the fishermen were permitted to shoot cormorants at up to 1,000 meters from the nets. That's still in force. That's one of the oldest measures that were given. And some of these pound net fishermen, they're still left, with these 5 people that we have left. Some of them shoot more than 1,000 cormorants per year. So they're really good at trying to protect their fishing. Then we documented this loss of the smolts. Then we have anglers who were permitted to shoot cormorants during the smolt migration. And that was already 15 years ago that we started to give permissions to that. Then we saw this cormorant foraging in rivers, and then we started to do also to permit anglers to do protective shooting. Yeah?
Important question. Can you shoot them everywhere? In our case, there are many nature parks. And
yeah.
You cannot situation in Denmark?
We have these.
Just
We have Natura 2000 areas. In the Natura 2000 areas, it's okay. I think they get permissions pretty easily. Then we have these bird reserves, which are reservations just for birds. Basically, we don't give permissions there. But again, this is actually written very well in the management plan, saying that, for example, for the Houting, is highly profiled. So even there is a national park and bird sanctuary and everything, but still it's okay to shoot there because of the Houting. And we also pointed out that the lake trout population we have are very, very threatened. Christy knows all about that because she was in the best spawning river we have for lake trout. Now it's expecting to get about 1,000 fish. And what did we get? 5?
A bit more.
Yeah, 10 maybe. They were up there yesterday, got 14. So it's really, really bad. So I said, okay, guys, these lake trout populations are really, really, really threatened. So now we can actually also give permissions, or the authorities give permission to shoot in these places. But you're right, it's not a carte blanche. It's not like everybody can shoot everywhere. But this here is very specific during smolt predation. So it's just during 3 weeks of time that they can do this. This here is basically only in the winter. And the winter is a good time to shoot because there's no birds that have any nests or anything there. So basically this one is also very easily obtained. This is a new thing. It's also possible now to shoot them while they're sitting in the trees sleeping. We found this was a good way to keep them off the rivers, because if you shoot them on the roosting sites where they sleep, then they disappear. So that's also a new possibility. Here's some permissions to shoot, and these are not individual permissions to one person. These are individual permissions to a whole fishing organization. So typically it's a fishing angling club that has this river to fish in. They send in an application, and then they may have, each permission may have 100 hunters or 20 hunters that go and shoot on this license. And you can see it's been quite stable until now, and this last year was actually 400. So now, because of the river conflicts, more and more volunteers are trying to shoot cormorants in the rivers. So these are basically only to protect our river fishing. Then we have done this oiling of eggs for many years. Basically, you go out 2 times in the spring, see the cormorants are still sitting here on the nests, then you just put some paraffin oil. And the reason it's blue is so you could recognize the eggs, so you know that you sprayed them, and don't do it second time because they can put new eggs in. And it's very efficient. There is a few birds that may succeed in getting eggs, but mostly they just lie on these guys and think that they have Easter eggs, and they're pretty happy about it. They look nice, you know, and the whole year goes and there's no chicks, and that's a very humane way of doing it, you can say. So does that help very much? So how much are we doing? This is the total nest number in Denmark. That's the same graph I showed before. Here's the proportion that are oiled, and you can see it's not something we do in all the colonies at all. We were at a level here at about 5,000 nests per year. So it's more something we do very intensively in areas where we don't want the cormorants. And one place that we don't want the cormorants are out in the west coast on that Ringkøbing Fjord estuary that I showed you, where we have all the salmon smolts, we have all the Houting, well, not all, but we also have Houting, we have sea trout, we have flounder, we have all those things we want to protect. So there we do it. This is actually from another place. The other one that I talked about is down here, but up here in the Limfjord we have one colony that was unwanted because there was a big fishing for eel in this area, and they didn't want this cormorant colony. So here's the results from that. You can see we started really oiling them in 2003. Still left a little bit of eggs unoiled because it was shown that if you have a little bit of living chicks in the colony, it keeps the others better. So it was basically to keep them there but not having chicks. And you can see this is mostly like what you would expect. After some years it starts going down and down and down, and I think actually now we are at a level here somewhere. So here you can say, well, it's not perfect, but it may work. But then we go to this here place in Ringkøbing Fjord, where we did the same thing. And look at this here. We did it all from 2003, just oil, lots of the eggs, went down okay, then suddenly it just goes up again, And we're like, what the fuck, you know, we oil everything, and it keeps going down, and oh, okay, now we got it, and then goes up again. So nothing. And the only correlation we can find is that this was a good year for flounder, so a lot of recruitment, 2 million flounders came in from the North Sea. Fishermen got like 100 kilo, cormorants got the rest. Same here, good flounder recruitment, 2 million young flounders coming in, cormorants getting them, then it goes down again. So 17 years after start, we have still about 2,000 nests now in 2018. So if this is the way it goes, I don't really recommend egg oiling to anybody. It's not such a big job to do it. It can be done. It's not very costly. It's for animal welfare. It's very good. I mean, the birds just kind of fly off and come back, and you don't do much of a harm. But to solve the problems, not really that. Thomas always asked me to show this figure too, because he thinks that I go around and tell that it's not helping anything, because he thinks that here you can see that these are the proportion of colonies with chicks. That means the proportion of colonies that are still alive and working after these years after establishment. So if you have a new colony that established here, and then you start to do measures, which is oiling and scaring, then you see the chance of this colony surviving is much less than if you don't do anything. So at least what this figure shows is that you can do something. So especially if you go out in the early days when a colony is newly established, you can actually scare the birds away or shoot some of them and they will disappear. But you can still see it's not 100% successful. This one should of course go straight down to 0, but still some of them are surviving as a colony, even if we do things. So the birds are pretty tough. They're difficult to do anything with. So my wish have been in many years to try to, and that's also what I've been using my Nordic cooperation to do, is to get money, not just little money, but more money, like millions, to do a big project in all the countries where we have a lake, a river, and a coastal area, where we monitor the fish, and then we try to exclude the cormorants as good as we can. And then we see how does the fish stock react? What do we reach? Do we come up to something like it was before, or does nothing happen? What will happen? And so this was kind of like a pilot study for that we got money for. So this is in Skjern River. This is again the salmon smolts. This is highly profiled. It's very, very good fishing out there. It's very valuable. It generates 18 million euros per year for the local community. So they are very happy for the salmon out there. And they know that it's a problem that the cormorants eat the smolts. So we tried to make a coordinated hunting and scaring to keep birds from the river. We also tried to shoot and hunt birds very intensively at the river mouth and at the sluice, which is those two places where the smolts are eating. These smolts, the small salmon that comes out from the river, as soon as they come out in the fjord, they start kind of like swimming around, being very confused, and that's where the birds often take them. And again, if they're going through this little sluice area, they also start milling around, and that's also where they got eaten. So these are the two places we would like to control them. And to see if this here worked, we were monitoring predation using telemetry. So it's basically using the predation on smolt as a proxy, as an index for how well we did on this. And of course there was also a lot of counting, because we also need to see if we could get the numbers down. So this was a pilot project for 2 years. I had big hopes. We spent a lot of money on this. We had one guy permanently positioned there to coordinate all that hunting, because it was volunteer people, it was hunters that was putting in. So the result is that in 2016 we did no extraordinary regulation in the smolt period. There was the normal common regulation, but nothing extraordinary, everything like it used to be. And then we monitored the predation here. And then in 17 we did heavy regulation in the river, in the fjord, and in the sluice area. We had more than 600 hunters, and 33 boats were involved in this special measure to reduce predation, just in the smolt period. And we also destroyed 1,800 nests, because we wanted to prevent this colony, and they came out too late, so they already had the nests. So this guy says, oh, fuck, we take the tractor out there. So he took a tractor out and he just ran over 1,800 nests with a tractor, not even asking anybody. So a lot of things were done, very large and very costly. You can imagine 600 hunters were assigned to help us reduce the cormorants. So we wanted to see if we really do a big action, how far can we get that predation down? Can we get it down to 20%? Can we get it down to 10%? Can we get it down to nothing? That's what we wanted to see. So the way we did it here was that we have these small traps in the river. We catch the smalls. We did exactly the same things in 16 and in 17. We put radio tags in 75 fish every year, and we put acoustic tags in 260 fish. So it was a very, very expensive and very large project here to see how many have made them out. And so here's the effects of this hard regulation. So this here is just for comparison for the old days. So in 2005, this is the number of fish that survived the river, the number of fish that survived the estuary, and the overall survival. So you can see in 2005, which is the old data, many cormorants here, but there we have less than 50% making it out. So in 2016, with no measures, no regulations, we had a little bit more than 50% making it out. So that was good. And this was the one we hoped to get up here. And then in 2017, we monitored the same, and nothing. So it was actually worse than anything. So even with doing all these things, we still have this big problem. This is actually just the survival of fish to the sea. These are the proportion that goes out in the North Sea from the acoustic tagging. So we think maybe it could be something else than the cormorants here. But I did all these radio tagged fish, and we found all these tags in the cormorant colonies. So it was still cormorants. Even though we did all that, they still ate 55% of all the salmon smolts. So yeah, that's what you can see here too also. That in 2016 we had 51% that reached the sea, and in 17 it was only 44%. So very, very disappointing. Lots of work that was totally wasted, and nothing good to show about people. So it seems that the management measures are not the main cause of the decrease of the cormorant numbers. It is these cold winters and lack of food. And it also shows that even if we did so much hunting and involved so many people, we still could not really solve the problem at all. So that's the status right now as we talk. Then I will just leave Denmark because that was kind of boring now and go to EU. So in EU, it's like we have the birds directive. They are basically covering the cormorants, both species, sinensis and carbo, are just numbers. They are just part of the birds directive like every other bird. They are not especially protected at all. They are not in any kind of annexes. They are just covered by the birds directive like all other birds that are not huntable. So if people tell you that the cormorants are special protected, it's not true. They are not at all. They are actually the least protected you can be unless you have a hunting time on you. So they have the bird directive decide these things, but the European Parliament wants some action. They really want a plan. They want this. They have a lot of people in the Parliament who listen to people at home and who say we want to have this problem addressed. Something must be done. The Commission, not so much. They basically say no, the countries can do whatever they want. So some member states are really trying to reduce numbers. Like, for example, in France, they shoot 60,000 birds every year. And other members are still very protective to cormorants. That's like Finland, Holland, maybe some of the Baltic countries too. And that's why I put you guys in here. Few member states seem to not care it very much because they don't really seem to be a big conflict. The Parliament wants to promote this pan-European management plan, which I think would be a good idea. But the Commission always says, well, we have the birds directive and we have the derogation. Derogation means that you can be allowed to do things that you are not allowed to do in the birds directive. So that means that if you cannot really just kill all the birds you want, but if you get a permission from your local authorities, it's under the derogation and then it's okay. So this is some of of the things that came out of the European Union. This is from 2009, and actually that's the main document you can use nowadays. If you're a manager, if you're in an environmental institute, this is the document you should use to say, okay, we can do these things and it's okay. Because in here, it says very clearly that even you do not even need to document if you have a, what would that be in English, a sustained suspicion of damage on recreational fisheries or commercial fisheries. You are allowed to do derogation, meaning then you can permit hunters and people to destroy colonies, you can shoot birds, you can do almost anything within these derogations. We also have a document that came out almost, well, a little bit later from Ian Cowkes, which is more or less like a cormorant conflict handbook. So he's trying to discuss the different things between fisheries and bird conservation, pro and con and so on. And Ian was doing a pretty good job, I think, in this one. It's very balanced. It's not like me saying that there's a huge problem everywhere. It just says that some places there might be problems, and then you can try to use these management measures. So those are at least some of the EU things that came on. Then in October, we actually had a meeting here in the EU Parliament because some organizations and Parliament members really wanted to again try to make this management plan. They say cormorants are everywhere, they come from all countries, and they impact all countries, so this is really a place where EU should go in and do something. You can't just say that the national countries should do each of their own. And I was there, and Markus from the Swedish Sports Fishing Organization was there, and Niels Torvalds from Finland was there, and I think also, well, there was a whole lot of Parliament members there too. Not everybody. I think there's 800 EU parliaments. I think we got 25 in there, but still quite a lot. But what I got out of that hearing was that the Commission was not interested in doing things. The Commission says, hey guys, listen here. Yes, we saw Mr. Jepsen's documentation. Yes, it might be true. We think it's true. It's good enough. It's published. It's in Denmark. It's a big problem. But you can do it. You can solve the problems yourself. You can use the derogations. We gave you all the tools. You can do whatever. You can even use nuclear bombs to get them away or whatever you want. It will all be okay. So why bother us? And we say, well, the reason I don't say that, that's the stakeholders, which are the anglers. They say, yeah, but you can see it doesn't work because Holland is protecting, Finland is protecting, Sweden is producing, Germany is shooting, France is shooting, Denmark is trying to do in between, and everybody is doing their own job, and it's the same birds. So I think they have a good point in saying that the reality of the world have shown that it doesn't work. I mean, in theory, it's fine that they say, yeah, every country can do their own. But if they read the book, like the devil reads the Bible, like in Finland, they read the book and say, oh, no, we can't do anything. And in France, they read the book and say, it's in English, we shoot everything anyway. So that's not doing the same. I mean, that's not what EU is about. So I think it would be nice to have a management plan. Anyway, I don't know what comes out of this hearing. It was fun for me to be in the Parliament, and you can see I didn't even have a tie on that day, so it's not to be rude that I didn't wear a sign. So the way I see it here is actually we have birds on one side, nice natural birds. I don't really believe the discussion about these sinensis being invasive or not. They act like an invasive species, but there's no way to prove that they haven't been here always. And if they've been here, introduced by the Dutch, it was in the 1500s. So for me, it doesn't matter. That's academic interest. They are natural birds. They should be here, fine. These fish have been here for 1 million years too. They should also be allowed to stay here. So we have this scale about what can we do. And as I see it here, we have conservation issues, we have biodiversity, we have a recreational value, which is huge. I mean, for a lot of people, it's their life. I mean, if we can't go fishing, we'll just go and hang ourselves. There's nothing else to do. And of course, it has a big commercial value too. For example, as I said, in Denmark, we have spent more than 1,000 million kroner just in removing dams for the fish. 1,000 million, that's not as much as Danske Bank is laundering here in Estonia, but it's a little proportion of that. And for nature, for banks it's little money, but for nature it's very big. So we have spent lots and lots of money and we have been very successful in rebuilding the salmon stocks, rebuilding the sea trout stocks. We have huge numbers of salmon and sea trout compared to before, but they all been eaten now, so that's a big problem. We have the cultural history too, that is gone. I mean, all this, as I said, all the coastal fishing, all these little harbors are just dying now. Nobody lives there anymore. And of course, there's some feelings associated with it too, because we like the fish and we think they're nice and they should be there. And over here, I don't see any conservation issue. There's over 1 million birds. I mean, how many should there be? We have some say there's 1.9 million now in the population. They don't have a recreational value. I don't see any recreational value. People like to see birds. I like to see cormorants, but I don't like to see 1,000. If I see 50, it's fine. And I think that's the same for everybody. And there's no commercial value whatsoever. But there certainly is a lot of feelings on this. And this is strange to me, because as a scientist, this is things I can't really work with, and I don't know what to do about it. So it's not my work. But they're certainly there. And that's actually why you get this war between these two groups. So I think the way forward for us would be, again, international cooperation, Nordic group. We have the European Anglers Alliance. We have the European Inland Fisheries and Aquaculture Advisory Council. I should know, because I'm actually heading the group of IFAC. They have one active project going on, and it's the Cormorant project, which I'm heading. And the only thing I do there is to write something every year. And nobody ever gives money to anything, and IFAC don't really have any muscles. It's the freshwater pendant to ISIS, but they don't really have much to do, which is very unfortunate. But we at least have a cormorant policy. And of course, we have the politics. And we also have to talk to the politicians, and we have to do the funding. I can say that in Denmark, it was very much like being in Brussels and being home in Denmark. It was much the same, because the last 3 ministers we have had, Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture, have been very, very, very clear. Now we will solve the cormorant problem. Now we have to do something. They're very politically very clear on this. But when it comes down to giving money for anything, no. That's not going to happen. We have to send them all to Danske Bank so they can clean them up. But at least the sports fishermen are doing this here, which is also in all, how do you say that? In my own humble opinion, I was initiating this together with the Danish Sports Fisheries Association, saying that we need some Nordic cooperation. You guys need to talk to the people in Sweden and Finland, because they don't know what's going to happen to them. If suddenly they see the same thing as we do, they need to have some documentation and something. So we think that if EU cannot agree on this, we have this Nordic cooperation is the only way that we can manage the conflicts in Denmark. Because the birds that make the conflicts for us are the birds from Sweden and Finland, because they come here for a nice visit. And there's more and more of them coming. And they never bring money, and they never bring anything, just to eat the fish. So we really have to work on this. And it's going, but it's going slowly, because, again, there's no money. I mean, people always call me from Germany and say, can your research group do this? Or can we come and see your research group? And I say, what group are you talking about? Yeah, your cormorant research group. And I said, we don't have such a thing. I mean, I spend about 20% of my time doing cormorant research, and that's it. That's the only thing we have in Denmark. So it's not like we have even if it's the biggest problem we have in our fisheries, there's just no money for it. So very little is being done. And that's why we need to do more applications on funding together. I'm starting now to work a lot with these private funds, trying to get money for this. Very difficult, because all the private funds want to do something good. They don't want to put money into conflicts. So if there's a conflict, they say, yeah, it's a good thing, but we don't want to touch it because we want to do something that everybody are happy about. So it's difficult for them, and we are thinking that the European maritime money, the EMFF money that also supports this meeting, would be a way to go for more cooperation. So what we don't want to end up in is like this here. This is actually a German lake where they have been monitoring the fish for many, many years, and they found that the cormorants were eating more and more and more of the fish population, and finally they found out that the only way to save the fish was to try to cover some areas with nets, just like I did in the river. So they're actually spending 20,000 euros every year covering up a small area like this, just to make sure that at least some few individuals of the fish will survive, so there can be some spawning for next year. So I thought that was the most craziest thing I ever saw, but that's how it is. So that was it for management. The cormorants don't care. Yeah.
See vist ajad, et
Oh yeah. Get my Estonian.
number 2 you should have, jah. Aitäh Nilsile selle teise ettekande eest samuti. Jällegi oli väga palju mõtteid ja väga palju informatsiooni. Ja ma arvan, et siin kõrva taha tasub panna paar asja. Esiteks siis see, jah, et tegemist on väga sellise rahvusvahelise küsimusega, et linnud ei tunne riigi piire, lendavad siia ja sinna. Ja minu meelest oli üsna, ma teadsin neid andmeid, aga täna oli uuesti päris nagu mõnes mõttes kurb vaadata, et palju tööd, palju raha, mis on maetud nii-öelda sinna, et kormoranide arvu Taanis reguleerida mõnes kohas on tegelikult ei ole mitte mingisugust erilist tulemust jätnud. Ja põhjus, võib-olla ma esitaks vahepeal ühe küsimuse. Ma arvan, mis on oluline aru saada, et kõigepealt me vaatasime, et nii mitmeski kohas praktiliselt ei olnud mitte mingisugust tulemust sellele, et tehti näiteks õlitamist. Aga ma mäletan vanast ajast, kas ei olnud mitte niimoodi, et Toomas näitas, et Taanis, kui nüüd talvituvaid linde vaadata, või oli see üldse linde vaadata, tegelikult kogu aeg on suurenenud nende lindude protsent, kes on pärit Soomest või siis ka Eestist või Ida-Euroopast. Kas see oli niimoodi, et selles mõttes, et tegelikult mõju on, aga pidevalt on rohkem ja rohkem linde tulnud mujalt juurde ja seetõttu üldised numbrid ei ole alla läinud? On see nii või ei ole?
Yes, that could easily be that could be one of the explanations that and this is also why I say that even if we have these meetings for the management plan, and if we could kill every colony, which is what we could do, we could actually go out. It's not rocket science. I mean, just send some people out, destroy all the colonies in Denmark. And if we do that, we would stop having any breeding birds. But we would still have all these birds, as you say, from the winter. And they come more and more because we get more and more birds produced in Finland and Sweden every year. It really increases. And more of them think Denmark is a nice place to stay in the winter. We don't have so much ice, so they stay there. And then we would have the same problems. Not on the coast. I think the coast could be saved by that a little bit. So maybe we'll get some better fish on the coast. But the rivers and the lakes would be the same shit. Sorry, but that's how it is, I think. So all the management we do may be having an effect on our population. It does have some effect. I mean, it stabilized and went even down. But at the same time, the coast, which provides the food, is not functioning anymore. All the seals, all the cormorants, the place they should find 90% of their food is on the coast. They don't go out to the deep sea. They should not go in the rivers and lakes. They should get their food on the coast. And when the coast cannot produce any food anymore, so what do? They go elsewhere. And that's where we have the problem. So I think it's very clear that it's the food that is lacking. The reason why all these colonies collapsed was not regulation. It was not sea eagles. It was just there was no food left. When we started to see all the flounders gone, there's nothing they can eat. So that's what I think. And of course, Thomas has to also try to say that at least some of that management that we have done now for all these years have an effect. And maybe it has, but it's very difficult to monitor anyway. You had a question there.
Thank you, Marcin Rucinski, Low Impact Fishes of Europe, Baltic and North Sea Coordinator. This is all extremely interesting, and thank you for 2 hours of talk that was, intriguing and bringing all the facts. A question on international cooperation context, because you said, well, it's difficult, of course, but you haven't mentioned, I haven't heard it, at least the Baltic-wide cooperation. I'm thinking Helcom and Baltfish in particular, where you know, in the common fisheries policy, we have the mechanism called regionalization.
Yeah.
And an element of regionalization is also a coordinating of national policies. One could imagine, I could well imagine a boldfish group talking about coordinating their Article 9 derogations.
Yeah.
And, for example, pressing in a coordinated fashion their specific, let's say, environmental administrations to do so. Because I think, I agree very much that what we need is more cooperation. What you haven't mentioned also, I would imagine that many of those birds are not only coming from Sweden, they're also coming equally from Germany and Poland. You know the story of the colony in Kontribackie, close to Gdansk. It's the biggest one in Europe. It's
13,000.
Yeah, it was up to 17,000 breeding pairs at some point. Yeah. But it has, let's say, peaked recently, but it's still very big. So I very much agree with the fact that, you know, like uncoordinated, isolated measures will not work. No. So if it's difficult in the EU, we should try at regional level.
You're absolutely right. HELCOM is a hell of a good suggestion. We have been talking about that. I think the problem may again be that nobody there's no money for anybody working at this. So I'm the only one, and I'm a freshwater person, so I'm in IFAC and all these things, but I don't go much in the marine. That's my colleagues in Copenhagen. And they are the ones that goes to the HELCOM meetings. And they only talk about herring, sprat, cod, big deep sea fishing species. They don't talk much about coastal fish. Maybe they do, but my colleagues don't, because their research is always on cod and herring and sand eel and so on. So maybe I should try to get my feet a little bit more into this HELCOM working groups. Yeah.
Can I also just a little point? There is a group at HELCOM called FishPro. That does a lot of work in relation to status of coastal populations. It's pretty crude as far as I can tell. We've been there with our members from FSK back in February this year.
Okay.
And well, they're I wouldn't say they're starting from scratch, but there is a lot to do certainly in relation to data gaps and certainly in relation to pressures analysis.
Yeah. No, it would be a good platform to start out with.
Yeah. I can tell you when the next meeting is.
Yes, please send me an email with that. That would be nice.
Ennem kui ma Kalev Rätistele annan järgmiseks küsimuseks mikrofoni, ma teen ühe kurva nalja, et me rääkisime siin rahvusvahelisest koostööst ja et ei ole ühe koha kormorane, aga paar päeva tagasi, kui me siia selleks ürituseks Kristina helistas Läänemaa inimestele, ütles, et tulge ka kuulama, siis nad ütlesid, et Läänemaal ei ole kormorane. No, nüüd ma annan Kalevi kätte.
Mul ei ole otseselt küsimus, vaid mul on paar kommentaari. Nüüd oldi mures, et need ettevõtmised ei avalda mõju. Ja tundus, et 2010 ja 2011 arvukus läks alla, et ilmselt on ikkagi mingit efekti mõjud olnud. Aga tegelikult ornitoloogina ma ütlen seda, et aastad, talved 2009, 2010, 2011 olid äärmiselt karmid ja näiteks kui me vaatame luiki, laululuik ja väikeluik, kelle talitusalad suures osas kattuvad kormoraniga, siis täpselt samasugune arvukuse langus oli ka nendel liikidel. Nii et see ei ole otseselt nüüd nende ettevõtmiste tulemus, et seal arvukus alla läks, vaid see on pigem looduse, kliima enda käik. Aga mis ma tahtsin öelda, need ettevõtmised, need meetmed, mis kasutusele võeti, need ei ole väga efektiivsed. Kormoran on pika elueaga linnuliik, nii nagu kalakajakas, keda ma tunnen väga hästi. Ja põhimõtteliselt selleks, et asulkond püsiks stabiilne, on vaja nendel lindudel, nendel liikidel, et elu jooksul paar jätab 2 suguküpset järglast, kes hakkavad ise pesitsema. Nüüd kormoran, kui ta pisitseb 10 aastat, see tähendab seda, et keskmiselt on 4 muna kurnas, 40 muna, nendest 40 munast peab siis tulema 2 suguküpset järglast nende 10 aasta jooksul, ütleme. Ja nüüd, kui me õlitame mingi osa ära, siis kui 1 aasta läheb kormoran aia taha, siis see ei avalda eriti suurt efekti. See on üks asi. Teine asi on see, et see sügisene laskmine. Statistika on näidanud, et põhiliselt jäävad püssitoru ette noored linnud. Kui me võtame arvesse seda, et pika elueaga linnuliikidel keskmiselt munadest kuni suhuküpse saabumiseni jääb ellu ainult 10%, siis see on lihtsalt selline kõrvalmõju. See suremus kuni suuküpse saabumiseni, kormoranil on see 3 kuni 5 eluaastani, et sel ajal see suremus on niigi väga suur ja kui seal siis osa linde lastakse jahimeeste poolt maha, nagu näiteks seal Prantsusmaal väga palju lastakse, siis see on selline väikese mõjuga kõrvalefekt. Aitäh!
Niels, do you want to comment?
Yeah, that's. I think that's pretty correct. They have this long lifespan, and they produce many chicks. And even if you shoot, and this was also an argument that was used in Brussels, in EU, saying that it's not fair, also for animal welfare, that a lot of birds are produced here, and then they're just hunted and shot and have all this suffering elsewhere. So it would be much better to make a good coordinated management of the species. Also because, as you say, it's where's the sense in producing thousands and thousands and thousands here and then just trying to shoot them down here, and then they come back and then they also get persecuted. So it's not a good situation for anybody. I don't think anybody who likes birds and love birds like to see this either, because the cormorants are very tough to shoot also. So when you shoot them, a lot of them are hit, but they fly on. So it will be like the geese, they have all these shots in the stomach or wherever, and some of them will die later. And it's just not a good situation. So it's pretty terrible for everybody, the way it's done now. Yeah.
First, before I give it to, või ma räägin eesti keeles, jah. Et üks küsimus minu meelest, mis ma arvan, et igale nii-öelda bioloogiat hästi tundvale inimesele, keda siin on õnneks palju, pähe torkav on see, et kui me näeme siin sellist klassikalist olukorda, alguses on väga palju saaki ehk kala ja vähe linde, mingi aja pärast on palju linde ja vähe saaki ehk kala, siis tegelikult peaks see avaldama mõju ka nende lindude sellisele konditsioonile või sellele, kui hästi nad ennast tunnevad, et tegelikult nad peaksid ju olema selles olukorras näljas. Ja minu meelest ongi olemas informatsiooni selle kohta, et kormoranide endi selline keskmine konditsioon, see on siis rasvasus ja üldse selline nii-öelda tervislik olukord, on ka tegelikult oluliselt alla läinud mõnes kohas, et nad ise ka kannatavad sellele, et toitu ei ole. Et on see nii või oskad sa mõne sõnaga seda kommenteerida?
Yes, I mean, this is also something that Thomas and his cormorant students are looking at and have been looking at, is of course how do these colonies fare, and especially when these big colonies collapsed, they were like, why did this happen? Was there any disease? And it always showed that no, it was just because the birds were starving. So a lot of birds have eggs, they get the chicks, and then you see the chicks die from starvation because they cannot find enough food. So if you are in an area with, like the Danish coast now, with so little food, and you are maybe 2,000 nests, and you have to find food for 10,000 chicks, it's just impossible. So, and that's pretty terrible. So we see lots and lots and lots of chicks, especially some years. Some years it's okay, some years they just lie there and are dead, and very few are produced. So one should think that on the long term the population will go down, and yeah, we have seen this decline, and especially like you said, these very cold winters gave us like 25% reduction. So we kind of hope that maybe nature is now doing some balancing, but now it comes back up. So the problem for us is that even with a low number of cormorants, if we get a food source, if we get, some years we have good cod, for example, like thousands and thousands and thousands of little cod that come into the coast, and everybody's like, yes, finally we see cod again. We haven't seen them for years and years. And the fishermen say we have thousands of cod in our nets. We just put them out and wait till they grow bigger. And then you see a lot of cormorants coming and a very good success in breeding that year. And then the cod is basically gone. So we are at a situation now where there's so few fish and so much predation that can go on that it does go on. And that's it.
Aitäh, Niels, ma sain Toomaselt informatsiooni või et tegelikult on lugu nüüd niimoodi, et me peame praegu lõpetama, aga ma tahaks rõhutada, et pärast seda, kui me kuuleme Marina ettekannet olukorrast sellest, mis on Soomes, minust on see väga huvitav, kuidas seal olukord on ja siis Lauri ettekannet Eestist, on meil mõeldud selline nii-öelda paneel, mis tegelikult tähendab siis seda, et siis on rohkem aega kõikvõimalikeks küsimusteks, loomulikult kormoranide teemal ja me saame nagu sügavamale sisse minna selle asja juurde. Aga praegu peame siis lõunapausi, aga loomulikult ma usun, et ka lõuna ajal me saame ju sellel teemal edasi rääkida. Aitäh.
All right.
Ja ma korra küsin, et kas...
Kes ta?